Hi, welcome to Quirky Queen's Journals. My name's Kirsten. So I am making a mixed media abstract art piece using mostly collage. So I am starting it with a little picture that I made in my previous video where I ended up making a lot of little abstract pictures using the gelli plate. So there are lines and shapes on this little picture that I'm using it as a starting point, and so I am extending out lines and shapes from these. The colour palette is already there as well because I'll just use what's on the little picture. The little picture also has some health and safety symbols on it because it was originally an information leaflet. So I decided to use this IKEA booklet to add in, just because they go well together, the health and safety symbols and the instruction booklet for furniture from IKEA. I'm also using the glue stick because it lets me change my mind if I do so in the next 5 or 10 minutes before it sticks properly. So I'm just trying a few pieces out just now. I have cut out a lot of the, pieces that I didn't use that I've tried, but I did keep a few bits in just so you can see the sort of decision-making process. So that was a cadmium yellow, and this is alizarin crimson. Alizarin crimson. And there is a black line in that collage piece that I'm trying to match up to the lines that were in the little picture. So that is something that I like to do while I am, using collage. It almost feels like it gives it a reason for being there and it connects the pieces together. They're not just bits of paper stuck on another piece of paper. They've actually got a purpose because they're connecting to each other. So this is just a few here that I tried that I never used. These are water-soluble oil pastels, and I really like these because they behave like oil pastels. The texture on the paper is like oil pastels. However, if you do add water, then they become more like a watercolour paint. So they're multi-purpose. So this piece did take a while to come together. However, I do think it ended up quite atmospheric at the end. I did add in I probably blended more than I normally would. I tend to work more in kind of colour blocks with lines in them. However, I did use the paint in a more graduated fashion this time, and I do think it actually helped add some atmosphere. So this cadmium yellow on tissue paper is one of my favourite collage pieces. It's so transparent, but the colour's so intense, and it's a really nice combination to have. So I have used a little bit of it. So this paint is called Neon Blue by Arteza, and it's actually a pouring paint. I don't think it's very neon. I just think it's quite a nice shade of sky blue. And the little picture that I started the collage with, that is the main colour that's in that. So I wanted to add it into the bigger picture overall. So this is actually some white sort of lines that I made with furniture packaging on the gelli plate. It's white paint on tissue paper. And so I like the fact it's very subtle. It adds in some subtle squares and lines. So it just helps mute some areas, push them into the background, which enables other areas to be highlighted. And it does it in a very subtle fashion. So you're not really changing what's happening. You're just adding a sort of blurring effect. And that's what I like that collage paper for. So this is Payne's Grey. And this is in the little picture I started with. I was reluctant to use black in a large area because it's a very overpowering dominant colour. And so I like to substitute that for Payne's Grey because it's just, it's less intense. And it also works well with that kind of sky blue that I've used already. So I am trying to add it in a sort of more blended way so that it's not just a big block colour. This is something I'm trying to work on actually, is having things more graduated, because it does help add a bit more atmosphere to what's going on rather than just having different colour blocks. But then there's times that I really do just want the colour blocks. So near the bottom on the left hand side, I had added some of watered down Payne's Grey and then the kind of dark blue oil pastel that's water soluble. I blended that in as well, and I think that's quite a nice effect. So I feel at this point that we've got the kind of early stages down. We've sort of composed what's going on. We've got the colours down, and then it's really about trying to get on that path now of where it's going to end up. And I think that when this next section is where that starts to happen. So most of what's on here is jelly prints that I've made in the past. That's generally what I use for collage paper, just because it's usually got interesting textures, shapes, the colours, you know, there's a lot going on them. So at this stage, I feel like it's really time to start thinking about the sort of mood of the piece, about maybe what situation it is you're thinking of, how you want it to come across. Do you want it to be big and bold? Do you want it to be more blended? And for me, you know, I felt this started to come together like it was a room in someone's house. But you could see the outside. And mood-wise, I did feel it was more associated with memories and maybe bittersweet ones where there is a lot of happiness, but there's a tinge of sadness. I'm also trying to find balance. I always find at the end, that is the main thing that I'm trying to focus on, is balancing it and making it a full picture, not just lots of interesting areas, you know, that are on the same page, so that they all work together. So this is just a paper towel tube, and I used a Posca pen on the end of it, and it was just to allow me to add in some very, very subtle circle shapes so that it brought that Payne's Grey paint side in with the collage paper with the black circles on it. So because the Payne's Grey on the right hand side is quite rough and it's quite textured, it's got blurred edges, on the left hand side I've added in the 3 squares where they're solid shapes, the colour is consistent and the edges are sharp, and that's just to, it balances the left and the right hand side together, but it also highlights the differences in the two, which helps the picture become more interesting. So this is yellow ochre. and the tall strip that I used, which isn't really in, you know, anywhere else in the picture. However, I do feel that because there's Payne's Grey in that yellow ochre strip and the cadmium yellow, when it's with other colours, I feel the yellow ochre isn't so far removed from it, and I do feel it works. So now I'm happy with the picture, and what I want to do now is just bring it all together, bring the atmosphere, add in that final piece. And so the burnt sienna water-soluble oil pastel I'd used earlier on, I'm just bringing that into other areas of the picture. I do add in some black, which I feel was quite dominant actually, and it's brought all the focus into the middle of the picture. However, I used some black pan pastel just to blend that out some more, take it into other areas, and I actually do think that it's helped build atmosphere in it, because the blending with the pan pastel is so fine that I really do think it made the picture. So this collage piece, I think, is really what made it as well. So I feel there's some really dark areas and there's some really light areas in this picture, and the mixture of the two is what gives it that bittersweet quality of happiness tinged with a little bit of sadness. And to me, this looks like a yellow chair where a lot of memories have been made, you know, by the person that's been sitting in it, or the people that have been sitting in it. So I know we need a bit more of a brighter yellow. We just need a little bit more of that just to you know, highlight the chair some more and to bring balance. And so I end up using the yellow yellow deep hue paint, have it blended in areas. I love it against the Payne's Grey, and I was really happy with how it turned out. And I like the way that the yellow, because the chair is the focus point, but that yellow at the top goes between the light and the dark, and I just think that really brings it all together. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you like the picture as well, and I hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye.